Okay, now we're going to finish ending 6.0b by going through some examples. Now we're going to use the theorems that we just went over and talk about how we can apply this. So in this example we have two pairs of parallel lines. So M and N are parallel lines, P and Q are parallel lines, and they're intersecting, all of them are intersecting, and so there are 4 points of intersection. Now, it's important that we know that they are parallel. Because they are parallel and they're cutting through each other, we can use the theorems that we used before. So, it says in the figure, measure of angle 3, so that's this measure angle right here, it's equal to 102 degrees. And it wants us to find the measure of each angle in these, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and to tell which postulate or theorem we used. So let's talk about measure of angle 5. So angle 5 is right here. Now, do we know the measure of this angle? So the relationship between measure of angle 3 and angle 5 is that they are congruent because they are alternate interior angles. So I know that the measure of angle 5 is equal to 102 degrees because of the alternate interior angles. Now, what I would recommend that you guys do is pause the video, try to finish this yourself really quickly, and then you can check with my work. But I'm going to go through and do these, but yeah, I would ask that you guys try it on your own, see if you can find the measure of these angles. Okay, so continuing on, so measure of angle 6, okay, so angle 6 is right here. So I know that angle 5 and angle 6 are a linear pair, which means that their measures are supplementary. And I already know that measure of angle 5 is 102 degrees. So if they're supplementary, well, I'm going to take 180 degrees and subtract 102 degrees to get measure of angle 6. So here, that makes this 7, bring a 1, so we get 8, 7, so 78 degrees. So measure of angle 6 is equal to 78 degrees. Okay. Measure of angle 11, so that's right here. Notice that measure of angle 11 corresponds with angle 3. So that must mean, oh, and through this one I use supplementary, or linear pair, I guess I should say linear pair. I use the linear pair postulate to conclude that measure of angle 5 and measure of angle 6 are supplementary, so I could find the other side. Now measure of angle 11 is equal to 102 because it corresponds, 3 and 11 are corresponding angles. So through corresponding angles, we know that they are congruent. And you might have different theorems that you're using, which is fine. So measure of angle 7, well, measure of angle 7 corresponds with angle 3, so the measure of angle 7 must equal 102 degrees through corresponding angles. I could have also used the supplementary because I know that 6 and 7 are linear pairs, so I could have used that one as well. So measure of angle 15, so this was 102, this was 102. Well, it corresponds with 7 and 11, which we already found. So this is measure of angle 15 is equal to 102. That's a corresponding angle. Measure of angle 14. So I'm going to say that this is 78 degrees because these are same side interior angles. So measure of angle 14 is equal to 78, and I know that the supplementary angle to 102 is 78. So same side interior angles are supplementary. So same side interior angles are supplementary. Okay. Yeah, really not too bad, right? Okay, let's come down here. identify parallel lines. So we can identify parallel lines. If two lines in a plane are cut by a transversal and certain conditions are met, the lines must be parallel. So basically what this is saying, so let's say we had two lines, okay? Let's say that we don't know that these lines are parallel, but we do know that they're cut by a transversal. So are these two lines parallel? And let's say that we know the angles, for instance. So we know that what the angles are, but we don't know whether or not they're parallel. So if conditions are met, then these lines are parallel. And those conditions are if corresponding angles are congruent. So let's say if any pair of corresponding, let's say we know that this angle and this angle, these are corresponding angles. Let's say that we know that they're congruent. If we know that they're congruent, then we know that these two lines are parallel. So that works for any pair of corresponding angles. Let's say that if alternate angles, alternate exterior or interior, so if the alternate exterior or the alternate interior angles are congruent, then these lines are parallel. If consecutive or same side interior angles are supplementary, then these lines are parallel. Or if two lines are perpendicular. Excuse me. If two lines are perpendicular to the same line. So basically what that means, let's say for example, we had this line right here. Let's say that it was perpendicular. So if two lines are perpendicular to the same line, so if this perpendicular means that they create 90-degree angles. So if it is perpendicular, then you know that these both share 90-degree angles, which would mean that it would be, these two lines would have to be parallel. Okay, so that's how you can tell two lines are parallel if any of these things occur. It doesn't have to be multiple ones, just one of these things have to occur. Okay, so in these last two examples, it says measure of angle 1 and measure angle 2 are equal to each other. Determine which lines, if any, are parallel and state the postulate and theorems to justify your answer. Okay, so since angle is 1, measure of angle 1, so since measure of angle 1 and measure of angle 2 are equal to each other, well, then we know that they are congruent. So by the corresponding angles, we know that R and S are parallel. So we know that these two lines are parallel. Since we know that they are congruent because they have the same angles measure. I'm just going to write that instead just to save time. So because we know that measure of angle 1 and measure of angle 2 are equal to each other, then we know that angle 1 is congruent with angle 2. And by this, the linear parallel lines through all of this situations that we came up with, R is parallel to S. Okay? And this is by corresponding angles. Now that's pretty much all we can do, because we can't prove that M and N are parallel because we don't know anything about these angles right here. So we can't prove that M and N are parallel, just that R and S are parallel. Now let's say if we knew that this angle right here was congruent with 1, or that angles 2 was congruent with this angle right here, then we can prove that M and N are parallel, but we don't know anything about those angles, so we can't make any assumptions. Let's go to example 2. So it wants us to find the measure of angle ABC. If you ever see something like this, measure of angle ABC, this right here is the middle angle, so the middle point. So here's A, here's B, and here's C. So measure of angle ABC means this angle right here. So going from A, B, C, it wants to know the measure of this angle right here. So find the measure of that angle so that M and N are parallel. Okay? So first of all, let's try and figure out what this angle is. Now, I know, so they gave us this angle right here is equal to 6x minus 20, and this angle right here is equal to 3x plus 10. Okay? So I know that measure of angle ABC is equal to measure of angle DAB. So that's here to here to here, that angle right there, DAB. I know that they are equal by the alternate interior angles. These are alternate interior angles. By alternate interior angles, these are equal to each other. Okay, so let's take these angles. So I know that 3x plus 10 is equal to 6x minus 20. Now we have an equation and we can use algebra and solve. So I'm going to subtract 3x here, subtract 3x here, and add 20 here and 20 here. So those cancel. This equals 30. This is 3x, and those cancel. So I can divide by 3. So I know that x would be equal to 10. So if I know that x is equal to 10, let's go ahead and plug these into these equations. So for angles, so measure of angle DAB, that's equal to 3 times 10 plus 10, which is equal to 30 plus 10, which is equal to 40. Okay, let's try measure. So measure of angle ABC, well, that's equal to 6 times by 10, because x is equal to 10, minus 20. So that's equal to 60 minus 20, which is equal to 40. So these two angles are the same. And we found that their angles are equal to 40. So because these angles are congruent, that they are the same, okay, we also know then that these two angles, that these two lines right here, so M and N, are parallel. So hence, M and N are parallel. Okay, and that should do it for 6B. I know it was kind of long, a lot of content, but we got through it and we're finished. So if you have any questions, make sure you let me know in an email. Thanks.